The battle over Jerusalem. Why President Trump's official recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital has sparked debate. 1. Why is Jerusalem such a flashpoint? Last month, President Trump officially recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. He also said that the United States will move its embassy there from Tel Aviv. The announcement broke with 7 decades of American policy in the Middle East. It prompted protests and violence across the Arab world. It also sparked criticism from many world leaders. They said it would further complicate the stalled peace process between Israel and the Palestinians. The two sides have been in conflict since Israel's founding in 1948. Here's what you need to know surrounding the debates about Trump's announcement. Jerusalem is sacred to 3 of the world's major religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The Old City of Jerusalem is home to some of the holiest sites in these religions. For Christians, it's where Jesus was crucified around 30 AD. For Jews, it's the spot where the Second Temple, which was destroyed in 70 AD, once stood. It's also where the only remnant of that temple, a wall that held up its foundation, still stands. For Muslims, it's where the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven in the 7th century. Jerusalem's religious significance has long made the city the focus of conflict. It was a point of contention between Christians and Muslims during the Crusades in the Middle Ages. Most recently, it's been an issue between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Jerusalem has been a sensitive political issue almost throughout modern history, says Anthony Cordesman, a Middle Eastern expert at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, D.C. Today, both Israel and the Palestinians claim the city as their political capital. Most Middle East analysts have long assumed that any eventual peace deal between the two sides would involve some way to share Jerusalem. A city divided. The Old City of Jerusalem is less than half a square mile, but packed within its ancient city walls, practically on top of each other, are sites considered holy by Jews, Christians, and Muslims. So here you can see the Western Wall, the Dome of the Rock, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And if we continue to scroll down, it shows us where more items are located as well. Take some time to explore this page on your own. I'm going to continue with paragraph 2 in our reading. 2. Why did President Trump recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital? Since 1948, it's been United States policy that the status of Jerusalem is a matter for negotiations between Israelis and Palestinians. Donald Trump wasn't the first presidential candidate to promise to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital and move the U.S. embassy there. Democrat Bill Clinton and Republican George W. Bush did it too when they were campaigning. President Trump is, however, the first to follow through on that pledge once in office. Trump says it's the right thing to do to acknowledge the reality that Jerusalem is the seat of Israel's government. The U.S. has avoided that fact for decades, he says. Trump says avoiding that fact has done little to resolve the long-standing conflict between Israel and Palestine. It would be folly or false to assume that repeating the exact same formula would now produce a different or better result, Trump said in announcing his decision. Recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital, he added, is a long overdue step to advance the peace process. This issue is important to some of the conservative Jews and evangelical Christians who supported Trump in his run for the White House. Many evangelicals are strong supporters of Israel. They believe the Jewish possession of the Holy Land is necessary for Jesus' return. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson says it may take several years to carry out the embassy move. No other country currently has an embassy in Jerusalem, but Guatemala announced it will follow the U.S. and move its embassy there as well. Several other countries, including Honduras, are reportedly considering this move as well. 3. What has the reaction been to Trump's announcement? Most of the international community condemned or said to his move. That includes the United Nations, the European Union, and the Pope. British Prime Minister Theresa May called it unhelpful in terms of prospects for peace. Israel, on the other hand, cheered the announcement. The Jewish people and the Jewish state will be forever grateful, said Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. In the Arab world, the response was swift and angry. Across the Middle East, in Lebanon, Turkey, Egypt, Jordan, and in the West Bank and Gaza, protesters took to the streets to express their outrage. Some burned photographs of President Trump. In other places, protests became violent. Hundreds of Palestinian youths clashed with Israeli forces in the West Bank. Dozens were injured, but overall the violence wasn't as bad as many had feared. Even so, many Middle East experts say Trump's announcement will have negative ripple effects. This will do tremendous damage to America's image and interest in the region, said Nabil Fahmy, a former foreign minister of Egypt. Of President Trump, he adds, he is playing into the hands of extremists and giving easy ammunition to extremists and terrorists. 4. Why are the Israelis and Palestinians in conflict? Israelis and Palestinians have been at loggerheads since Israel's founding in 1948. 6 million Jews were killed in Europe during the Holocaust. Afterwards, many nations embraced the idea of creating a Jewish state in a British ruled Palestine, the historical homeland of the Jewish people. In 1947, a year before the British rule over Palestine was set to end, the United Nations would divide the area into an Arab state and a Jewish state. The UN plan designated Jerusalem as a special international zone. This meant that it wouldn't belong to either country. The Jews accepted the partition plan, but the Arabs rejected it. When the British left and Israel declared independence in 1948, Arab states, including Egypt, Syria, and Iraq, attacked. Israel survived and in the course of the war seized control of western Jerusalem. Jordan captured eastern Jerusalem. This included all of the Old City with its religious sites and historical importance. 2 decades later, during the Six-Day War in 1967, Israel seized control of the rest of Jerusalem, along with the other territories. Israel has controlled the entire city ever since. The status of Jerusalem is the only issue that divides Israelis and Palestinians. Other key issues include where to draw the borders of a Palestinian state and how to ensure Israel's security. They're also split over what to do about the hundreds of thousands of Palestinian refugees who were displaced by the 1948 war and want the right to return. What are the prospects for peace? President Trump says his administration is dedicated to achieving a peace deal that will finally end the 7-decade-long conflict between Israel and Palestine. He insists recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital will help that cause rather than harm it. But many in the Middle East disagree. After Trump's announcement, the Arab League, an international organization of 22 Arab countries, declared Trump's announcement dangerous and unacceptable. Trump's decision also stripped the U.S. of its traditional role of sponsor and broker for the peace process, according to the Arab League statement. Many analysts agree that reaching common ground may now be more difficult. In reality, there were very few prospects for peace before this decision, said Cordesman, the Middle East expert, but there may be somewhat fewer prospects now. So now that you've finished the reading, make sure you access the note-taking activity and answer all of the big idea questions that I've given to you. Good luck!